now next we have Austin W to the stage. So we're going to add you in. Hi, Austin, you're on.
Howdy. Nice to talk to y'all.
Nice to talk to you too. What's up?
So, the girlfriend and I mutually, so I'm finishing up Case for Patriarchy. She just gobbled up Ask Your Husband, and I was hoping to get steered in the right direction as opposed to courting her in my current situation. Is that reasonable? Could you do that for me?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, we can give it our best crack here.
So here's the situation I'm at right now. I'm heading in my junior year. The girlfriend is going to be graduating this spring. And I know for a fact my parents would not be happy with me getting married within the next year and a half. But I've just gotten to be thinking in my noggin here. Marriage prep takes a couple months. So could I, in good conscience, ask for my girlfriend's hand in marriage from her father? And if he says yes, do marriage prep and then graduate from college and then marry her. Like, is that a good idea?
Well, there's the first couple presuppositions that if I were you, would be my presuppositions before I get to suppositions. One is that you don't want to block or dawdle on any vocational call you experience. And it's not the same kind of call that priests are called, by which they're called to the priesthood, but there is a call to marriage. And if you're feeling it with regard to another person, it involves this person-person rapport, which is different from a priestly vocation. Then timing is sensitive and you don't want to dawdle. Dawdling, once you're certain, I want to spend the rest of my life with this person, I want to walk with Jesus with this other person, we want to become one flesh. There can be, like, what would be the best way of putting it? Existential threats to the relationship by dawdling. So I think instead of pitching it as, well, it's a question of conscience, should I dawdle enough to satisfy my Gen X or Boomer parents or her Gen X or Boomer parents, depending on their ages? Their only real question of conscience is if waiting constitutes a kind of breach of the vocation or a dawdle of the vocation. If you're confident, if you're certain, that would be my first question, right? And you know, the other presuppositions that you might or might not be making is that wrongly, perhaps you're just supposing that her parents or your parents don't want you to get married during college. I think college is a phenomenal time to get married. I mean, is it materially different from grad school? I mean, a lot, because I've dealt with a lot of students and parents that are really against getting married as an undergrad. Very boomerish response. And they're like, at least wait until you're in grad school. You can be married in grad school. Why? Like, is there something, you're taking the 100s, 200s, 300s, or 400s? Did the classes matter? I mean, have you ever, if assuming that you're not just supposing this about her parents, your parents, have you ever asked them? I mean, I would be like, hey, you'll get the memo when I make a decision what I'm going to do.
It'll be some stupid thing like, oh, you need to make money. It'll be money related, why they shouldn't get married, all that, like this worldly stuff. I'd say this, like,
well, but yeah, money is not, we're not saying money's stupid. It's just, if your parents were planning on paying your tuition anyway, and her parents were paying her tuition anyway, I've heard parents threaten to cut the kids off if they get married in college. You can ask why. You know, you set aside this money for me to go to college. I'm still going to finish, you know, it's what do you, yeah. I mean, so I think that's, yeah, you don't have to make your own money while you're an undergrad in college. So why would that change if you move from dating a girl to being married to her? Have you had this conversation with either of your parents?
So not directly, but my brother, who is my 3-year senior, went went through all this, and their responses are always been, it's just like, you're not out of college yet. We want you to have a good 20 years. And to put in context, my parents got married to each other. I think my dad was 30, my mom was in her upper 20s. And so from that perspective, and knowing the life that they live, that makes sense. They're not practicing Catholics, so that's another hurdle as well. And so I know for a fact that they'll be opposed. I haven't asked my girlfriend's parents at all. I think that they might be more open to it. So that's the situation I'm in.
Would you, if you knew that this woman was the woman you're going to spend you want to spend the rest of your life with, and you asked the father if you could marry her, and he said no, would you not marry her?
I'm not sure what I would do in that. I'm not sure what I would do in that situation. I would probably wait. I'm
asking is because asking the father, like, the problem is, I think not kids, but people, just to be frank, in your generation, you guys are just waiting too much for permission to do like things that you should just do if you know that's what you want to do, right? So it's one thing to sit down with her dad and, you know, be respectful, which is what Tim and I have talked about. We're like, yeah, you know, all our 7 daughters, they don't need to ask our permission. It would be nice if they got to know Tim a little bit, you know, they could have a beer and told Tim, like, this is my intention to ask your daughter to marry him, because it's kind of phony. These guys who ask the girl's dad, if my dad said no, I would have married Tim anyway. So the permission, you're not asking for permission.
So I didn't ask.
So that's why you didn't ask.
Why would you say, you're telling me that God's calling you to marry this girl, but you're going to listen to some guy if you're going to ask for permission. It's like if God's calling you to be a priest, but you're going to ask a neighbor down the street for permission to be a priest, right? If God calls you to the vocation, then you should do it. God says jump, you say how high, right? So if you're legit, if this is not a confidence issue, like a sublimated confidence issue in your relationship, I'm not going to be like some Freudian and say that. If you're confident in the relationship, then, you know, it only makes sense to do one thing: ask her to marry you, and you know, respectfully tell both sets of parents afterwards. I wouldn't pull the whole electorate before you take action. I really wouldn't, because you're not, maybe in a healthier time, if you know, we were medieval peasants and everybody's parents were Catholics and everybody's parents were the same kind of Catholics, then you could play around with that game. I still find it paradoxical, because I don't care I didn't ask Steph's dad, because I didn't give a damn what he thought about us getting married.
I didn't either. Honestly, it's like if my dad said no, if my dad said no, I'd be like, okay, like, I'm still marrying this guy, whether you like it or not.
You know what it's like? It's like asking your neighbor if you could borrow a cup of your own sugar. That's what asking a girl's. I mean, it's something he's really not. It's a legal fiction. He's not in the position to deny you in the first place. And the fervency of your love is kind of measured by how much you would go through for. Would you die for this woman? If you say you'd die for her, but you wouldn't just disappoint one of y'all's parents for her, then you can see the basic incongruity of the claims. Yeah,
and people are saying like it's respectful to ask the guy's or the girlfriend's dad. It's really not, because it's not. You can do something respectful, like sit down and have a beer with them, invite him to dinner, and say, "I love your daughter. I've asked her to marry me. She accepted my proposal. I'm excited to be a part of your family." You can do respectful things, but don't be a phony, right?
Yeah, lying is always disrespectful. And if you say, which is what I'd hope you say, if you're ready to marry a girl, hey, I'm asking him, but it's kind of like asking to borrow a cup of sugar from myself at my neighbor's door. Right? It's like, this is kind of our decision. It has nothing to do with you. It's more respectful to tell someone the truth. Like, maybe the first time you go over and meet the parents after you've gotten engaged, you wear a suit and a tie and you bring a bottle of wine. You say, hey, we want you guys to celebrate with us. And you act nice. You don't spit in the food. that's how you be respectful. But this is just one of these things. I just reject the premise altogether that that it's respectful to ask a question that you never intend to answer. I think St. Thomas calls this a simulation. When you ask a question that you already know the answer to confuse the party about like whether or not you were there. You're like, have you ever done that where you ask someone like, oh, did you go swimming already, when you saw from across the way that they were swimming? It's called a simulation. It can be deceitful. So if you're asking a question where if he answers a certain way, you're going to just do what you're going to do anyway. You're simulating that he was in a power grant, ask or askee situation. So this all sort of constitutes advice. We're not trying to say this stuff like rhetorically or whatever. We're trying to give you the advice that we give everyone.
We just want these young men to understand you have a lot of power to design your life how you want to. And unfortunately, I don't think most parents in this day and age, in the secular age, are in any position to be really like squandering your opportunity through your God-given vocation. And they try to do that.
Yeah.
They'll give you bad advice. They'll say you have to wait for things that you don't need to wait for. If I could go back and get extra years of marriage under our belt, I would totally do that. I wish Tim and I would have gotten married instead of in our early 20s, like in our late teens, I mean, that's honestly how I feel about it. It's like, yeah. I mean, so you have more power than you think you do. If you think this girl is the one for you, then nobody has a right to tell you not to marry her.
And if they're going to cut you off tuition wise, and you feel like you need your last year of tuition, and you take a loan for 1 year or whatever. I mean, that's their prerogative. If they're going to cut you off for tuition in your senior year, where it's like, wait, this might cost me the best girl I've ever known that God told me I was supposed to be with. So it's worth taking a loan for senior year. That's the cost of your freedom. Sometimes freedom costs something, right? It's better than being under, mom's thumb or dad's thumb or MIL's thumb or FIL's thumb for your whole life. You want to tell people how to treat you as you enter into adulthood. And it's best to do it in a ceremonious way. It'd be great if they continue paying for tuition. But if they say, hey, if you do it, we're not going to pay for tuition anymore. You say, that's fair. It's your prerogative. My prerogative is I'm getting married, and by the way, it's also my prerogative to invite who I want to the wedding and to, have my eventual children that I'm going to produce interact with whom I want. So take that into consideration before you make your decision. But that's all very confrontational, and that's not how I would exactly go about it. We're just sort of jumping to we're cutting the corners. If we were coaching you, we'd take this all more slowly and we would urge more tact. But basically, this is where it's gone for a lot of young people. This is how the pattern has been.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. Thanks so much for all this advice. So the reason why I put in there the requirement that asked the dad was that I just thought that was the Christian thing to do. I didn't realize that was just a made up societal standard.
It's really Protestant. It's like a Protestant stuff. Remember, the Catholic Church gave women the right to choose their own husbands, right? This is like the Catholic Church says a woman has to choose her own husband. I mean, we know this.
It's null. It's null if her dad chooses. So.
It's nobody's saying go in there and be like, I'm marrying your daughter, jerk, buckle up, or anything like that. That's how people who when they hear us say this, that's how they'll tend to react, like, well, that's disrespectful. No, it's respectful. This is what I want my all 7 of my daughter's future husbands to come in and say. Just be like, I love your daughter. I've asked her to marry me. I'm going to take really good care of her, and we're going to do our best to fulfill God's word. That's all I need to hear.
Yeah.
Like, that's respectful. That's manly. All this phony, like, can I marry your daughter? Like, business, when you're damn well going to marry her anyway, even if the dad says no. It's so phony.
Well, I find it disrespectful.
Yeah.
It's disrespectful. It's like, a 3-year-old's birthday party where you ask them permission. Oh, can I come over, buddy? Can I come over to your party? It's like, oh, look, your parents already invited me. I have a 3-year-old too that you're sort of half-assed friends with. We're coming over. But you do that for a 3-year-old. What's disrespectful is to do that to a grown-ass man, a 65-year-old man. Oh, could I borrow a cup of my own flour? You know, it's like, look, you know, he sent his daughter off to college. This is the cost of doing business. I don't, you know, this is what the boomers begat. And, you know, you send your daughters off to college. Yes, they're going to meet a guy, God willing, a good guy. You sound like a good guy that wants to do the right thing. And it's not going to be really under your supervision or protection as a father. That's the cost of doing business. So, yeah, if she comes back, like in Father of the Bride, the Steve Martin movie, if she comes back engaged, oh, you just hope it's to a good guy.
Well, that's why you have your children. This is why I would tell fathers out there who are kind of recoiling what we have to say. You have your daughters for 18 years. Do your job right. If you do your job right, she's going to pick a good man for herself. That's going to be a good man. That's what those 18 years are for. That's what Tim's doing all the time with our daughters. He knows that once they're in the world, they're going to pick for themselves. And there's not anything you, Tim, can say or do about it. If our daughters pick a good guy, that's because they were raised well. They were taught well. If they pick a bad guy, then that is an indication on our jobs as parents. But that's ultimately what it
well, our daughters probably aren't going to go away to college. So that, no. and they always want to know, oh, do you like him? The time to do that, I think you're missing a trick here, Steph. Our daughters aren't going to go away to college. So their guy is going to come over to our house and hang out with us and watch movies. And I'm not going to be a jerk to the guy. And we'll watch movies. We'll know him. We'll know him from the first date, second date, third date onward. And that's where the parent's opinion counts more there. You ever notice that? Before you buy into, when the woman falls in love, like the mom says in My Big Fat Greek Wedding, it's over. Right? It's over. People are going to get married once they're in love. You can't really, it's not even moral to be like, can I marry your daughter? No. I'm like, what? Okay. I'm going to go get married, you know, like Braveheart in the forest or whatever. The time where it's moral to give your opinion is on their first date. And the problem is all the boomers have all this cognitive dissonance because they're all feminists and they sent their daughters away to college. You see what I'm saying? You see where I'm going with this? So they want, you know, it's like champagne taste and beer money. It just doesn't work. Their worldview is filled with cognitive dissonance. So if you want to inform your daughter's decision in a more providential, hands-on way, they got to be living at home. And you can do so from the beginning of the relationship when it's not, you're not meddling when a daughter goes on a first date with a guy and you can be like, that guy seemed rude or that guy seems dangerous. And your daughter actually wants your opinion. Once the daughter had to be her dad for herself because you sent her across the country to college, then she had to play dad for her own self. She had to take all the risks of going on a date not in her father's home. So 6 months, 12 months, 18 months later, she already assumed all the risk. Now she's like, I don't need your opinion. A father is good for being around when a daughter's on her first date. So I know this is hard for a lot of Gen X and boomers to hear, but this is the break. So no, this isn't going to be the way I run my home because I'm not sending my daughters out of my home across the country to go to college into the wilds of American campus life. No way. So it's a lot to chew on, I know. But yeah, you sound like a good guy. If you're feeling called to marriage, then pray about it to Jesus the night before you get a yes, and then go ask her. There's really one human being you have to ask for permission to get married.
Amen to that. Well, that answers my question. So thank you all so much. Appreciate it.
Good luck. Yeah, tell us how this all plays out. We're
write us an email, Austin. Let us know how it works out.